Hi there guys, welcome to another video. We're going to be looking through 91399 allocative efficiency, or 3.1 this video, the 2024 exam paper. Essentially, we're just going to go through each question one by one. I'd recommend, guys, that you go and give this exam a go before you watch this video, and then you just kind of watch this video as a little bit of a walkthrough explainer. Alright, so we'll get on into it now. So, I'll just turn this on. So essentially, guys, starting off here for question 1, we're looking at an increase in world price. Okay, so remembering with our world price, go watch the video I've got on world price if you haven't already. But essentially, our world price is over here. This is our original world price. Okay, so this is the price that consumers would be paying. Okay, and then once the world price increases, it's going to increase up to this price here. Okay, so before this increase in world price, guys, our consumers, sorry, not our consumers, actually, yeah, we'll go with our consumers. Okay, we'll say this is our consumer surplus over here. Okay, this is going to be our consumer surplus, guys, because remembering this line here is this area in here, guys. So it's going to be the difference between what consumers are willing and able to pay. Okay. Now remembering, guys, what consumers are willing to pay is this demand curve, and what they're able to pay is the world price, which is just as a fixed price, because New Zealand's a price taker, remember. So our producer surplus, on the other hand, is going to be, and we'll just do it in here, this will be our producer surplus. It's going to be this much larger area here. And all that area in there, I'll just color that in quickly. Okay, now remembering, guys, that this area in here is going to be imported. Okay, it's going to be the difference between exported. It's going to be the difference between quantity demanded and supplied, because for New Zealand's economic models, we're so small in comparison that we can just export essentially anything we want. We're through the lens of these kind of simpler economic models. Okay, so guys, this is what it's going to look like. We'll just say PS here, CS there. This is what it's going to look like before the increase in world price change. Now, after this increase in world price, our producer surplus is going to increase all the way to here. It's going to encompass that area as well. I won't go ahead and cover it in. And it's going to increase our imports all the way to this area here. Alright, well, our consumer surplus is just going to be this tiny little area up the top here, this tiny little triangle up here. Okay, so coming to our questions now, guys. The price New Zealand consumers pay before the world increase and after the world increase. Well, we know that before the increase they were just paying the world price, because we're a price taker, and then after the world price increase they're paying our new PW1. Okay, for the New Zealand producers, guys, same deal. They're going to receive PW, and they're going to be, after the world price increase, they're going to receive PW1. Okay, quantity sold by NZ producers, that's just going to, consumed by NZ producers, that's just going to be quantity demanded, right, guys? So originally it was quantity demanded before the world price increase. Now after that world price increase, it's decreased to QD1. Okay, so again, guys, pretty straightforward, just writing that in there, QD to QD1. Likewise for the quantity sold by NZ producers, was originally going to be QS, now it's going to be QS1. Okay, so we'll go and put that in there now. Nice. So finally, guys, coming on here to II, looking at consumer surpluses before and after. Okay, so looking at up here in our consumer surplus section, originally it was going, before this world price increase, when it was this area all across here. Alrighty, so the area was going to be A to C to PW. Okay, so we'll go and we'll write that in now. So A to C to PW. Alrighty, and our producer surplus was going to be PW to, I think that's an F, guys. Yeah, to an F to E. So PWFE. Oops. PWFE. All right. Now, guys, there's no deadweight loss here because these goods in here are being exported. Okay, so people are still taking place in the market. The world price increase hasn't left anyone out of the market, and it's still going to be allocatively efficient. Okay, so we'll just draw a little line through both of those in there. Now, coming for the consumer and producer surpluses after the world price increase. For our consumer surplus, it's just going to be A to B to PW1. So A to B to PW1. Okay, then for our producer surplus, it's going to be this E here to G to P1. So is it E? Yeah. So PW1 to E to G. Alrighty, guys, so that's kind of what we're looking at for that first question there. We'll get on to the rest of the test now. Okay, so moving on to our next section here, I. Just going to be typing this out, guys, just so it's a little bit easier to get this done more quickly. So they're wanting to know why the world price is a horizontal line. Okay, so remembering, guys, back to our videos on our world price and our tariffs, even though there's no tariffs in here. So New Zealand is a price taker in the global market. Okay, we're a very small economy in relation to the rest of the world, that is. So we can't influence the world price, and it just has to take a price that's dictated by its trading partners or the global market. Okay, so we'll put that into some words now. So the world price seen on the graph, on graph 1, and we'll just put in brackets, so S1 for the supply world and S1 W1, like that, is horizontal because New Zealand, or say NZ, is a price taker in the global market. Okay, we are a price taker, NZ, so we'll say NZ's a price taker. NZ is a price taker because it has a relatively small economy and market. We'll check that on next line, and market share in relation to the rest of the world, of its main trading partners. Looking at countries like China, the United States, the EU, all much bigger bodies in comparison. They're giants to us, quite a small country. So in relation to the rest of its main trading partners and the world, this means NZ is unable to influence world prices. Okay, we can't have any effect over it, and therefore has to, I've put it in brackets there, so we kind of just have to accept, we'll say accept the world price that has been dictated by its trading partners and the global market. Okay, so essentially, guys, that's all they're looking for that kind of first section up there. What you're looking at there is going to be a merit section. Okay, so definitely a good place you can pick up a few marks. Remembering, guys, I know I said this before, but it's not like with a math test or maybe a physics test where you get individual marks for each question. You're graded on individual marks for each part of a question. For this, you're given an overall mark for the entire question, which they look at just kind of based off the understanding that they can see. Okay, so moving on, refer to graph 1, table 1 and table 2 in your answers to part B below. So they want us to explain in detail the impacts of the increase in world price on a product that New Zealand exports might have on the following. So they want us to talk about New Zealand consumers, the producers who export it, and then they want us to talk about allocative efficiency. Okay. Reasonably straightforward, guys. So remembering for New Zealand consumers, they're going to be worse off because of the increase in their world price. Their consumer surplus is going to decrease, like we showed on the graph above, which means that consumers are going to be paying a higher price. Sorry, I said that wrong. So consumers are going to be paying a higher price, which means that the difference between what they're willing and able to pay becomes smaller, meaning that consumer surplus is going to decrease. Okay. Turning that into words, guys, we'll say NZ consumers are worse off as a result of the increase in world price from P1 to PW1. Okay. The increase, I'll check the new line, the increase in world price causes consumers to pay a higher price of PW1 as opposed to PW. This means the difference between what they're willing and able to pay has decreased. Okay. All right, so the difference between what they're willing to pay, okay, so what they're willing to pay, all right, and what they're able to pay has decreased. Okay, so that means that consumer surplus has decreased. Okay. Alrighty. This means that consumer, chuck that on a new line, that consumer surplus also decreases because consumers consume a lower quantity of QD1 on our graph. Remembering, guys, back to our graph of QD1 as opposed to QD, okay, which means they will have fewer units to gain a consumer surplus, leading to a decrease in the consumer surplus. Alrighty, guys, that's all they're looking for that top section. That is an excellence kind of question. What they're looking at for excellence is just that you're explaining that consumer surplus is decreasing due to higher prices and a lower quantity, and the definition of the difference between what they're willing and able to pay. And for a merit, you're looking at kind of explaining that just at a lower level. And then for an achieved, you're looking at either saying consumer surplus decreases due to a higher price or lower quantity, or the other part on producer surplus. Okay, so coming on to producer surplus here, guys. Over here. So our producers are going to be better off, right, guys? The producer surplus is going to increase, okay, because the difference between the price that they're willing to accept and the price that they're actually receiving is becoming much larger. And now they're also selling a greater quantity, which overall means they're going to gain more units to gain a surplus. Okay, so just kind of great news for the producers. So yeah, we'll get on into it, guys. So NZ export producers are better off as a result of the increase in world price. Okay. Okay, so we'll talk about the price first. So producer surplus will increase as NZ export producers will now receive a higher price. Remembering back to the graph, guys, we receive a higher price now for our goods. Receive a higher price of PW1 as opposed to PW. This means we'll start a new sentence there. This means that the difference between the price they're willing to accept and the price that they'll actually receive will increase. The price they're willing to accept and the price that they receive has increased. It's increased. Okay, has increased. And now coming on to looking at our quantity, guys. So NZ export producers also now sell a greater quantity of units at QS1, remembering back to our gas guys, as opposed to just to QS. Selling more units, which to gain additional producer surplus. Okay, so again, guys, that's all they're looking at for that question there. Similar to the consumer surplus question, they want us to talk about both the price and the quantity. Okay, so if you're looking for those excellence marks, which I'm sure a lot of you will be, they need you to talk about both of those things. Okay, for our merit, we need to talk about either one of those at the same level, okay? And then for achieved, we just need to talk about one of those four factors for either of those two, okay? Remembering, guys, referencing to those graphs as we've done over here, or as we've done over here, it's really important if you want to get above and achieved, okay? Alrighty, so coming on to part C here, we're looking at the allocative efficiency, okay? So the market has stayed allocatively efficient the entire time, guys, in both instances, okay? When the world price increased, both surpluses are still maximized, okay? So the market has been allocatively efficient throughout, but we just need to kind of put that into some words, okay? So first of all, we'll start off by explaining what allocative efficiency is, okay? So allocative efficiency is achieved when consumer and producer surplus are maximized and there is no dead weight loss. And we'll just put that in brackets so you can reference DWL for the rest of our report now. Okay. In both before and after the increase in world price, this is occurring as both consumer and producer surplus are maximized with no deadweight loss. Okay, so let's go in now and explain that a little bit more in depth, guys. Just get rid of those spelling errors. Surplus. Nice. Okay. So while consumer surplus has decreased, right, guys, the producer surplus has increased, and that increase in producer surplus is going to outweigh the decrease in consumer surplus, which is going to result in an increase in overall net welfare, right, guys? So net welfare is going to increase. Still no deadweight loss, hence there's going to be allocative efficiency, okay? So coming into writing that out, so while consumer surplus has decreased, producer surplus has increased, and the increase in producer surplus outweighs the increase in the decrease in consumer surplus. Okay. Surplus. Okay. Right, so thinking back to our graph, guys, that producer surplus, there was a larger increase of producer surplus than there was of consumer surplus. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and we'll put all those figures in now. So PW1 to GFPW. Okay, and we're just going to say that area in there, so that's the area of the increase. That area is going to be greater than PW1 BCPW. Okay. This means that there will be an increase in overall net welfare. Okay. And as there's still no deadweight loss, the market is allocatively efficient. Alrighty, guys, that wraps up question 1. Allocatively, not electively, allocatively, I think that's about right. Allocatively, it doesn't matter, allocatively efficient. Okay, so you could have gotten away with there saying that allocative efficiency is maintained, even though it's technically not true, but it's good to just have the right stuff in there, which is that it did increase. Okay, so for that question there, that there is looking at an excellence answer where you're referring to data and you're clearly explaining those points that allocative efficiency is achieved and the increase in world price because the sum of consumer surplus and producer surplus is maximized with no deadweight loss. Essentially, you're looking at the same thing there for a merit, just at a slightly lower level of explanation. And then for achieved, you're looking at either saying allocatively efficient is when the sum of consumer surplus and producer surplus is maximized and there's no deadweight loss, or if you said that allocative efficiency is achieved before and after the increase in world price. Okay, so one of those two things to get achieved. Alrighty, guys, so moving on to question 2 now. We'll get onto that now. Okay, guys, so looking here for question 2, we're looking at an indirect tax, guys. So remembering from our videos on indirect tax, that it's just going to be an increase in the cost of production, which is going to shift up our supply curve. Okay, so they want us to look at a $2 per drink indirect tax. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So a nice easy way to do this, guys, is to just choose one point here that's on the cross line, so it's a nice easy point. So 4 and 15, we can quite easily just go 6 and 15 is going to be our next point there, and then over here we can just increase this by 2 as well. We'll get out our ruler. Now, guys, for your tests, very, very important to remember to use a ruler. You can often be marked down or not receive any points at all if you don't use a ruler like what I'm doing here. So very good to use. Now we're going to just call this one here ST, okay, for that indirect tax. All right, and we'll just draw our new equilibrium here. Okay, so coming down here, it's going to be Q1, okay, and coming over here, it's going to be P1. Okay, now, guys, they want us to look at the original shortage. I think it says it here. So identify labeling the resulting shortage of surplus at the original price. Okay, so this does sound a bit confusing, guys, but this is probably one of the easier excellence sections in 3.1. But so just for the drawing this on the graph, essentially, guys, what we're going to do is we're just going to draw it where the new supply curve and the original price meet each other. Okay, so that's going to be this point right here, guys. So coming down here. Just like that. Now we don't need to give that new line a label, but what we do need to do is label our shortage. So we'll go do that now. So this area to this area, and that's going to be our shortage. Okay. Nice. Alrighty, guys. So that kind of wraps up this drawing on the graph. We'll go ahead and get into the rest of question 2 now, guys.
Okay, guys. So moving on to question they're talking about how equilibrium is going to be restored to alcoholic drinks following an increase in indirect tax. Okay, so guys, this is another market forces question. Okay, so, what happened in the market is there's going to be a shortage in drinks, in alcoholic drinks. Okay, and then because of that shortage, consumers are going to bid up the price to a point where supply will equal demand. Sorry, quantity supplied will equal quantity demanded, and equilibrium is going to be restored in the market. Okay. We'll just start off with kind of an opening sentence. So indirect, increasing, indirect, decrease, quantity supplied. Sorry about the pause. Decrease quantity supplied. And remember, guys, just like in level 1, we really need to say decrease quantity supplied at each and every price. Obviously, guys, because it's decreasing at each and every price, the exponent is shifted to the left, meaning to the left. Right. And now we'll go ahead and put it to the left. See those lines we drew on our graph, guys. Um, we'll go in and we'll give a few more details now about how that voltage was created. Okay, so the original price. So at the original price, 650, there would be voltage. You have 30 million alcohol. The quantity demanded is going to be greater than the quantity demanded. Quantity at that price, guys. So if there's going to be a shortage in the market, the price consumers, because they really want to get hands on this good, are going to start to bid up price. In response to this, consumers will again up the price, begin to bid up the price because they want to get a hold of this limited amount of alcohol. Limited amount. Because they're bidding up the price, the price is going to start to increase. As the price begins to increase, consumers, as the price increases, producers are going. As the price increases, increases. Producers increase their quantity supply. So they increase their quantity, become become a more profitable market, right? More profitable than when there was the shortage, not more profitable before the new alcohol will become a more profitable market. This will continue. Quantity supply will continue to rise. Quantity supply is going to keep rising, guys. If it does that, quantity demanded you. Oh, quantity demanded will start to decrease. Quantity supplied is going to increase, and this is going to keep happening until these two equal each other. This will continue to US equal equilibrium will be stored. Gets the lower quantity. Okay, so that's kind of what they're looking at for that section there, guys. This is a excellence. Okay, so to get excellence, you need to have a shortage created at an original price. Explain that the shortage which created, consumers would bid up the price. Quantity demanded would decrease, quantity supplied would increase, and then equilibrium would be restored. Okay, so all there is to that question. Skipping over this because we did that on our kind of right beforehand, and so we'll zoom out just a little bit. We're just looking at consumer surplus, producer surplus, efficiently implementing this indirect tax. Okay. We know that the consumer surplus is going to decrease, like we didn't do it on this document. We did do it before that. So consumer surplus will decrease by 73.1 million. Consumers are going to pay a higher price, right? Dollars instead of that 650, which means the difference between what they're willing and able to pay will decrease. Okay. More quantity and fewer units from which to gain a surplus. Again, guys, if you're not starting to see already, it's very, very formulaic answers. Okay, so almost after you've watched one of these kind of exam books or videos, you can almost just go and try and memorize these answers by yourself, just to kind of get a little bit of a better idea. But essentially, guys, we'll start off this answer by saying consumer surplus will decrease by 73.125. Oops. 73.125 million consumers price, not before price, dollars no longer is it, what you say, is it 50? So this means, right, guys, I just said before, the difference between what they're able to pay is decreased. That's that sentence that I always want you to put in there. So always put it in, even if you think it's kind of obvious, meaning the difference willing decrease. Yeah, so we've done that for surplus. I always want you to looking at the price. Consumers will consume a lower quantity. They're consuming now 45 million, opposed, I think it's 52.5, 50.5 now. Which means, right, guys, they're going to have fewer units from which to gain, which means that fewer units which to gain. Nice. Okay. What we're looking for this consumer section, guys, again, pretty straightforward. It's really just that formulaic answer. Again, similar with our producer section. Which means that there. It's very formulaic. We just want to spell it out again and again. So we talk about the product and we talk about the quantity. Okay, so it's really starting to see now that it's just it's a little bit sad, but you just have to memorize these answers essentially if you're looking for those excellent merit excellent grades. Okay, so coming on, so we'll talk about our so producer will decrease 24.375 million. Consumers producers producers will receive a lower price. Remembering, guys, that some of the incidence of the tax is still going to fall on producers. Okay, so in this case, it's a unit, uh, but it all kind of depends on the intensity of the market, right? So anyway, so they still negatively affected their producer set decreasing, which means the difference between the price they're willing to accept and what they actually receive is going to be less. Meaning, to accept is it's kind of that first, guys, on price section on quantity. Okay, so we're going to sell lower quantity, 45, 45 mil per meaning this unit, 2 units, much to get. Again, guys, it's formulaic about quantity. We talk about price, and again, eventually you guys will just get it so into lines that we just do it right every time. And you guys just looking at our efficiency. The market is no longer efficiency because of the deep weight loss introduced of 7.5 million. Write that in now, guys. There is loss of allocative efficiency. Dead weight loss. Guys, like we talked about before. And that's because the loss of consumer and producer surplus isn't fully offset by the gain of the tax. Right, guys. So that means that there's going to be some people who would have wanted to take place in the market who are no longer allocatively efficient. Weight loss. Okay, so this is because the combined loss of producer and surplus. Consumer surplus, which is 3.15 plus 24 million. Not going to be fully offset increase in revenue, which was a million, has not fully offset the increase in revenue from the government, which was 90 million. Means welfare. About before action. This means there's been a net welfare loss, guys. In brackets, deadweight loss 7.5 million. Okay. There's a deadweight loss of 7.5 million. This means not maximize. Guys, so that is kind of all they're looking at for this section here. All these kind of 3 sections in there, guys. So obviously, in case you guys didn't tell, it's an excellence section. So if you're looking for excellence, you're going to need to describe consumer surplus in detail, the producer surplus in detail, and the allocative. A little bit vague, the marking schedules, but essentially this is an E8 exemplar here. We can base off that. And guys, we will move on now to question 3.
Alrighty guys, so coming on to question 3 here, we're looking at maximum price control and elasticity. Okay, so looking at imposing a maximum price on some grocery items. Okay, so essentially here guys, we're looking at our surpluses before the price control. Okay, so our consumer and producer surplus before and after, and then just labeling that deadweight loss. So reasonably straightforward, guys. So remembering with our surpluses, for our consumer surplus, it's the difference between what consumers are willing and able to pay. Okay, so the difference between what they're willing and able to pay is going to be that area in there, right, guys? For our elastic graph, and for our inelastic graph, it's going to be this kind of much larger area in there. So there's much more of a difference between what they're willing and able to pay if the demand is inelastic. Okay, so that's what our consumer surplus, is going to be before the maximum price control. So we'll go ahead and put that in now. So 1 and 2 for our inelastic graph, and 6 and 7 for our elastic graph. Now, after the maximum price control, guys, it's going to change. Okay, so the difference between what consumers are willing and able to pay is going to just rub this out here. So some people may think that it would increase to here, right? So if the increase, increase by quite a lot to this area here. But because our suppliers, the new quantity supplied, because of the price fall, is only going to be here, that is the maximum amount of goods that these consumers are going to be able to buy. It's that area in there, okay? So this area that I'm rubbing out here, they can't buy those because they're not being supplied to the market. Now, they could potentially be imported or something else, but just looking at this kind of more rudimentary graph, this is the reality, is that the consumers can't buy any more goods than that. So that's what their new consumer surplus is going to be. Likewise, over here, guys, it's not going to be that. It's going to be 6 and 8 over here. So we'll go and we'll write that down there now. Nice. So writing it in here, it's going to be 1 and 3 and 6 and 8. Okay, so we'll write that in 1 plus 3, 6 plus 8. Nice. So looking at our producer surplus, guys, it's just the other way around. Okay, so it's going to be this area underneath. I'll rub this out actually. Rub this out as well. Okay, it's going to be this area in here for our producers before the producer surplus. Likewise for the elastic graph, it's going to be that area in there, guys. Now, afterwards, so we'll fill those figures in now actually. So for the elastic graph, it's going to be 3 plus 4 plus 5. And for the that was for the inelastic. For the elastic, it's going to be 8 plus 9 plus 10. Alrighty. Now afterwards, they're only going to be receiving this price here. There's going to be a lot fewer of them in the market, so it's just going to be that 5 and 10. Simply the kind of the similar to the consumer surplus, how the consumer surplus decreased. So just 5 and 10 we'll write in there now. So 5 for the inelastic and 10 for the elastic. Now finally, guys, just looking at our deadweight loss here. We'll do it in this pen here. So we're looking at consumers that would have taken place in the market, but no longer are going to. Okay, so because of the government intervention. Okay, so because of the government intervention, these consumers who would have otherwise, this surplus that would otherwise have taken place in the market, okay, this net social welfare, okay, it's no longer going to occur. All right, guys. Likewise with 2 and 4, same deal. What does that mean? It means it's deadweight loss, okay? Because of a government intervention, there's no longer going to be that surplus, okay? So just coming in here, guys, we'll just go 2 plus 4 for our deadweight loss and 7 plus 9 for our elastic deadweight loss. Alrighty, guys, that kind of wraps up this question 3 here. We'll get on to our write-up now. Alrighty, guys, so moving on to our next section here, II. We're looking at defining price elasticity of demand and explaining why one item might be elastic. Okay, so we'll just get a little text box set up here, guys. Alrighty, so guys, just remembering that price elasticity of demand is measuring the extent of a change in the quantity demanded of an item in response to a price change. Okay, so an item would be elastic if there was a greater proportionate change in quantity demanded compared to a change in price, and a good would be inelastic if there was a lesser change in quantity demanded relative to a change in price. Okay, that's a little bit of a confusing topic. There should be a video out on inelastic demand that I've published, or another video out there on YouTube, but that's kind of just the basics of it. So in terms of writing out our answer, we'll give our definition for price elasticity of demand. Price elasticity of demand measures the extent of a change in the quantity demanded of an item in response to a price change. Okay, like I said before, guys, an inelastic good would have a lesser response in quantity demanded relative to a change in price, and a elastic good would have a greater response. Okay, so in terms of giving a reason for why a good might be elastic, one reason would be that it's considered a luxury. One of them that could be because there's many substitutes. Yeah, so we'll write that out there, guys. So one reason an item may be elastic would be because there are many substitutes for the product. We don't really need to go into why that is. We just kind of need to give that base level reason, even for the merit mark, which is what this question is. And then we'll just quickly explain what an elastic good means. So this means that a change in price will see a greater proportionate change in quantity demanded. Alright, guys, that's kind of what they're looking at there for II. Pretty straightforward. That's a merit question. We'll move on now to B. So coming on to question B here, guys, quite a big, long question. They're looking at us wanting to compare and contrast the impact of this maximum price control on consumers, producers, and allocative efficiency, and of course, remembering to reference to the graphs throughout all our work. Okay, so starting off with, we're just going to give them the facts on consumer surplus. We'll do consumer surplus first. So the maximum, we'll just kind of go through the different changes referencing to the graph throughout, just kind of what that means for the inelastic and the elastic graph. Yeah, so we'll get started, guys. So the maximum price control causes consumer surplus to increase. We'll start off with that elastic good to increase from 1 plus 2 to 1 plus 3. Okay, 1 plus 3 when the item is inelastic. Okay, and from 6 plus 7 to 6 plus 8 if the item is elastic. Okay, right, guys, so just remembering back to graph before, just referencing to that at the start off, guys. So I've kind of got both of those in there. We'll just kind of explain why consumer surplus increases now, guys. So consumer surplus will increase because consumers are going to be paying a lower price, right? We'll pay the lower price of P max as opposed to the original price at PE, P equilibrium, at PE for that price at equilibrium, making the difference between what consumers are willing and able to pay increase. All right, guys, just that kind of classic line they always like to see and always good to reference to. Just remembering, guys, they did also lose some surplus because they've consumed a lower quantity, but it's still increased overall. Just by looking at the graph, we can base that off the figures, just off by kind of looking at it numerically. We'll put that in though. So although consumers will lose some surplus, because they are consuming lower quantity. Because they're consuming a lower quantity, right, guys? And then we'll just put in brackets. So QS instead of the original QE. Okay. When inelastic. And QS1 instead of QS1 instead of the original. I think it's just QE for that one as well. Yeah, QE when the good was elastic. Nice. Alrighty. We'll just kind of put a closing sentence up there for consumer surplus. So the increase in surplus due to the lower price outweighs the loss of surplus due to the lower quantity consumed, resulting in an overall increase, all right, in consumer surplus. Alrighty, now guys, that's kind of what they're looking for kind of our entry level stuff. I know that seems pretty wordy, and it's kind of just a formulaic answer that it's quite good to just try and memorize. So giving the graphs, talking about each side of consumer surplus, the quantity demanded and the price, kind of putting that out. And now we'll say that the increase in consumer surplus for an elastic item is going to be bigger, like we said when we were doing the graph. So the increase in consumer surplus is more when the item is elastic, okay, rather than inelastic, because we'll say 3 is greater than 2. 8 minus 7, we'll just say 7 is, because 7 is less than 2, okay. It's 2, meaning increasing consumer, we'll say increasing consumer services is more known as elastic. 7 meaning the consumer surplus loss and quantity will be smaller. Okay, so that's kind of what they're looking for that consumer section, guys. Now we'll get onto our producers, and then finally we'll wrap it up with allocative efficiency. The maximum price control will cause producer surplus to decrease. Again, guys, we gotta just put those numbers in. Very formulaic kind of answer here. So we'll decrease from 3 plus 4 plus 5 to just 5. Okay, when the item is inelastic, and from 8 plus 9 plus 10 to 10. Well, actually, we'll go to just 10 when the good is elastic. Okay, and then we'll just put a little bit of brackets there. Messed up the, just a second, guys. I'll get that sorted in a sec. Alrighty. Nice. Okay, so when the good is elastic. Now again, guys, we're just going to have to put out that same formulaic kind of answer looking at our consumer surplus, just for our producer surplus this time. So producer surplus will decrease. Will decrease because producers will receive a lower price, P max opposed to the original price of PE, right, guys? So price max as opposed to price at equilibrium. This will make the difference. Remember, guys, the same answer. This will make the difference between what producers are willing to accept and what they actually receive. Difference between what consumers, not consumers, producers are willing to accept and what they actually receive. Pardon me. Much smaller. We'll say smaller. Right, because that producer surplus is decreasing, so that the area in that triangle of the difference between what they're willing and able to accept will decrease. Okay. Okay, now, guys, we've talked about the price. We're going to go on to the quantity. Okay, so very, very formulaic. I know I've said this a few times, but very formulaic. That's just what they want to see if you're looking for excellence. Okay, just essentially, it's a bit sad, but just being able to spit out this kind of formulaic response and you'll get excellence. Okay. So coming on to the second section of the producer surplus, we'll say they will also sell a lower quantity, QS opposed to QE, when I think that's when it's inelastic. Yep, when the demand is inelastic. Or I'll just go into a new line. QS1 opposed to QE when the demand is elastic. This gives them fewer units of which to gain a surplus. Okay, running out of space here, guys. We'll need to go on to the next page. A surplus. Okay, moving on to kind of wrapping up that producer surplus section. We'll start a new line here, guys. So essentially, the loss in producer surplus is going to be greater than the gain in consumer surplus. Okay, which is going to lead to a decrease in quantity supplied. Okay, so coming on to this allocative efficiency section. So the loss in producer surplus is will be greater than the gain in consumer surplus, which will lead to a decrease in allocative efficiency, right, guys? Remembering both surpluses are no longer going to be maximized, and also there's a deadweight loss, we'll say indicated by the deadweight loss area of 2 plus 4, okay, of 2 plus 4 when the item is elastic, or 7 plus 9 when the item is inelastic. Okay, so this means that the sums of consumer and producer surplus are not maximized. This means that the sums of consumer and producer surplus are not maximized. Okay, not maximized. And not maximized. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. And then going on to which one is worse, it's going to be the inelastic good, like we talked about when we were doing our graph, guys. So we'll just say that now. So the loss of efficiency is greater for the inelastic item rather than the elastic item, as the deadweight loss is larger. And then we'll just put in brackets here 7 plus 9 is less than 2 plus 4. Nice. Alrighty, guys, getting pretty close now. We will just looking at the marking sheet here, see if there's anything I've forgotten. Okay, yeah, I think that kind of wraps up this question, guys. I think that is kind of all you'll be looking for there. So we've covered all three of those areas. Quite a long question. I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of exam walkthrough. Leave a comment below if you guys like this and you'd like to see some kind of more economic stuff, or if you'd just like me to stick to more accounting. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Good luck for any tests or exams exams you guys are doing, and have a good rest of your day, guys. See ya.